Hello again, Frank here with another tutorial on Fantasy Grounds Unity ADnD2e character creation. Last video we went over the main tab on Noober Fighter that we are creating here. Today we will go over the skills tab. If we click on skills, you can see a bunch of information has already been populated here from the character that we dragged, or the class that we dragged rather. So since we chose a fighter, we gain 4 weapon proficiencies, and we gain 3 non-weapon proficiencies. Now similarly to the main tab, you can drag and drop records into these areas in order to add information. You could type them in, but that's not going to be very useful. We want to actually drag the records. So we're going to start with non-weapon proficiencies. We go up here to records and we go to skills. It is going to open up the skills window. Now you will need to consult the player's handbook to determine what you have access to. So if we actually go to the fighter, there's several ways you can do this. You can go back to your main tab and click the gear, and it will bring up this little window here, and you can click on the shield on the far right next to fighter, and that will open the fighter. I highly recommend that this is the process that you do to open the class that you currently have on your character sheet. Depending on how many modules you have loaded, it is possible that you will have classes that have identical names, and that can get confusing. Fantasy Grounds relies on IDs, so if you accidentally drag and drop a fighter from a different module, it is going to add that class rather than add a level. But that is something we'll get into later. Just get used to using this window. We're going to close this for now, and just going to kind of take a gander here at the fighter. So if we go all the way to the bottom and we go to where it says proficiency slots, we can see how many proficiencies we are supposed to have. If we look at warrior or initial, we gain 1 extra every 3 levels. We get a -2 penalty for weapons we choose to use that we are not proficient in. Our initial non-weapon proficiency is 3, and we also gain an extra non-weapon proficiency every 3 levels. Now, this shows us all the non-weapon proficiencies groups in the list, in case you wanted to look through the tables as they are written in the player's handbook. Now, if you were to go through and look at the player's handbook, it will tell you in detail on what proficiencies you are allowed to have access to based on your class. I already know what they are, just from playing for so long. So in this case, we know that the warrior gains access to the general, and the fighter gains access to general and warrior groups. So we can pick anything from here. This is all the general grouping. And then if we go down, we can look for warrior. We gain access to all these at cost. You can see that it has the cost of the proficiencies in here. If we attempted to take anything from the wizard, priest, or rogue groups, we would have to pay double the allotment. So if we wanted ancient history, that would cost us 2. Astrology would cost us 4. Now, as an optional rule for the player's handbook, it states that you can use the added languages for bonus proficiencies. You will not be able to adjust this. Your DM will need to do it for you if they incorporate that rule. But we're not going to get too much into different house rules and such. We're going to go back to the skills tab. We have our skills open. There's a couple things you can do here. You can either go down to type, and you can search by the different stats that are primary for that proficiency. This can be quite useful if you have a stat that you favor and you just want to pick things that, you know, your character would typically be good at. If you had high strength, you probably want to concentrate on that stuff. If you look over here on the right hand side, it tells you the groups. You can further adjust this by either clicking on one of these. These are links. If you clicked on general, it will automatically bring you to general. Or you can hit the drop down up here. You go to uncategorized, it's going to show you anything that's local in the campaign that was not assigned a group. And also click on all to show all, or today we're just going to concentrate on warrior proficiencies. There is also the by type button up here. This will bring up a little reference manual that shows you the stat types and just really by type. So not super useful, but it does give you a little more information like the modifiers and such. Kind of nice to kind of look at, I suppose. Now if you see anything in here with brackets and a number in them, oops, that will tell you how many points they cost. Otherwise, just assume that the points are 1, unless your DM tells you otherwise. I'm going to close that. I think our noober fighter here, he's going to be good at hunting. So we're going to drag hunting over here. Now you notice the used box did not get consumed. You need to update that yourself. So we've used 1 point, and you see that the value here has become 11. If you double click on this box, it will roll your proficiency check. It will tell you how much you passed or failed by, and it will tell you the modifier stat. If you click on the gear here, it will tell you the type. So this is based off your wisdom, and there's a modifier skill, or excuse me, a skill modifier of -1. You can put any class modifiers or stat modifiers in here, but typically they're all already included. One thing to note is if you want to level this up, one thing I tell my players is just to put points in the miscellaneous box. So we still have 3 points, or excuse me, 2 points available. I want this guy to be relatively better at hunting than the average fighter. So I'm going to go ahead and put 1 point in there, and you see that the value increased. So, but I also need to decrease the amount available by increasing the amount used. We have 1 point left. Let's just say that this guy is good at running. Running and hunting. Oh my goodness. His running is a 4. And why is that? Running is constitution based with a -6 skill modifier. So that's pretty rough. Let's take a look at running and see what it says. This is why you don't want to type in your skills, because if you click and drag them, they will be accessible on your character sheet, and you don't have to come back to the skills window and try to figure out what it was that the skill actually does. Just simply click on the shield, and that will bring up the information. Well, you know what? Running, I'm not so keen on that. We're going to right click, we're going to delete that. It's going to ask us to confirm the delete on the radial window. Go ahead and do that. So, since we know that we're going to suck at running, let's pick something else. Matter of fact, let's pick something from general. So we'll click the drop down, roll up a little here, go to general, and you know what? You got to eat. If you're hunting, you're probably going to need to cook the food that you killed. So we're going to cook. Hey, we're a little better at that. Cooking is intelligence based, and we're pretty decent at that, I suppose. If your DM has some sort of house rule that maybe changes one of these, maybe he wants your cooking skill to be wisdom based, you can simply open this and adjust this by clicking on it and cycling through. Don't pick percent usually, but we'll get into that later. We're going to leave it on intelligence for now. Now, weapon proficiencies in 2nd edition are by type. So just because you know how to use a short sword does not mean you know how to use a long sword. They are different in length, the weight is different, everything about it is different. So as per the rules, you must be proficient in the very specific weapon that you are looking to use. As there are so many different types of weapons and possibilities, there is no drop down, there is no window to go to necessarily. However, what you can do is you can go to items. You can pull up all of the items. I'm gonna make this window a little bigger. and we're going to pick a type here, and we're going to go to weapons. This is going to bring up all the different weapons. Now you could hit the add item here and type in an item, and we'll do one for that. So we'll say that Nuber here, he knows how to use a short sword. He should also be pretty good with a bow, I would think, since he knows how to hunt. We're going to come over here into items, and we're going to do a search. We're going to type in bow. You notice that nothing has changed here. I'm going to hit enter, and that will do the filter. We are going to pick a short bow, because typically when you start an adventure, you're not going to have a whole lot of money, and long bows tend to be on the pricier side. So we'll start with a short bow, and I want to know how to use this weapon. So instead of typing it in, we'll just drag this over right here, and it puts it in. Notice that there's no information here. It's simply useful for when you have an item. Now this gear next to it, you see where it says weapon proficiencies applied. Well, there's no weapons because we don't have inventory yet. But once we get inventory, you will see that the weapons start to open up in here, and you will need to assign the proficiencies to the weapons you actually carry. There will be more on that later. And you know what? I kind of want to be proficient in a longsword as well. Since that is the meat and potatoes of most D&D campaigns, longswords tend to be very common and just useful. Damage is good, speed is good, just an all-around useful weapon to have. So, in fact, fighters, they can specialize. So, by spending 2 slots of weapon proficiencies, they can specialize. We are going to go ahead and do that. Just going to put in parentheses here, specialize. So, with specialization comes a bonus. Notice this Fantasy Grounds doesn't have any idea. You got to put this information in. So if we click on the gear, we're just going to modify these values. With specialization comes a +1 to hit and a +2 to damage. And we can close that. This will automatically apply to any weapon that we put the longsword specialization proficiency on. And we will get more into that when we get to the Actions tab. Next is languages. Well, Nuber here, he is a dwarf, so we're going to click on Add Item, and we're going to say he knows how to speak Dwarven. And Common, because why not? Most should know how to speak Common. So these are the 2 languages that he knows, and to backtrack to weapon proficiencies, you notice just like the non-weapon proficiency slots here, it did not consume the used box, and we forgot to consume the last non-weapon proficiency slot. So we have used 3 slots, so I'm going to update this, and we have used 4 slots here. 2 for specialization, 1 for short sword, and 1 for short bow. That is all 4 of our slots. This is not mandatory, obviously, but it does help you keep track of what you have available. And that takes care of everything you need to know on the Skills tab. Thank you for watching.